I'm a 28-year-old guy who used to be thick as thieves with my older brother. He's 30. We were the dynamic duo, inseparable through thick and thin. But then, plot twist. He gets hitched to his now wife, she's 29, about 5 years ago, and boom, it's like he vanished into thin air. It's not just me feeling the cold shoulder, he's pretty much ghosted our entire family post-marriage. Here's where it gets wild. He's swapped out family traditions for his in-laws. Birthdays? Those are exclusively with his wife's family now. We get the leftovers. A belated celebration if we're lucky. It's like we're the second choice, an afterthought. What gives? Has anyone else experienced their sibling turning into a family Houdini once they tied the knot? And get this, every single holiday, like clockwork, he's over at his in-laws, and we're just left wondering what happened. My folks and I couldn't help but feel a bit abandoned. It's like he's just erased us from his priority list. We tried to shrug it off, but deep down it stung. The kicker? His in-laws aren't exactly our biggest fans, so crashing their festive get-togethers wasn't an option. But here's where the plot thickens. I recently popped the question to my girlfriend of 7 years. She's 26. Plot twist of the century. Right as we're riding the high of getting engaged, we discover she's 4 weeks pregnant. Over the Moon doesn't even start to cover it. So, we decide to throw a mega bash to celebrate the double whammy of joy, the upcoming wedding, and our little bundle of joy on the way. I even extended an olive branch to my brother and sister-in-law, hoping for a family reunion of sorts. But get this. During the entire party, they're acting all kinds of weird. Like they're huddled in a corner, whispering like they're plotting a heist or something, and barely interact with anyone else. Total vibe killers. After a while, they finally approached me and asked me if they could speak to me in person, and dragged me aside to my bedroom and locked the door. I was very confused since I didn't know what could be so important and personal that they needed to do all of this just to make sure we weren't overheard. Then they started talking, and my sister-in-law told me that they'd been trying for a baby as well for quite a while now, and my sister-in-law was also pregnant. I congratulated them, but they didn't look very happy and went on to tell me that they'd been struggling. And so they ended up spending a lot of money on IVF and medical bills, which meant that once the baby came along, they'd be in a lot of financial trouble. My sister-in-law had asked her parents and siblings for help, but they'd refused, saying that they needed to save up for themselves. So they suggested that we team up and ask my parents for money, since they could definitely afford that. My dad's a retired heart surgeon, and my mom was a journalist, so they made a pretty comfortable living. They have saved up a significant amount over the years, so yes, they can afford to help us out. But I like to believe that they've raised us to be responsible enough to earn and spend our money in a way that doesn't require us to ask for help in the first place. And the way that my brother wanted to get the money was even worse than what I thought. They were too proud to just go and ask for the money, so they'd wanted me to ask on their behalf and claim that I was the one struggling. My brother have constantly snapped off family for the past 2 years after his marriage, so he knew that if he asked, it would be really awkward and humiliating for him, which is why he wanted to avoid it and was sending me ahead. My brother, out of the blue, hits me with this scheme where he wants me to hit up our parents for double the cash they actually need, just so we can split the loot. He's banking on the fact that our folks would never leave me high and dry if they thought I was in a jam. And the kicker? Even if our parents didn't cough up the full amount, we'd still get a chunk of change, and that'd be enough for them. Talk about a wild plan, right? I was shocked that they were even suggesting this because our parents had always treated both of us equally, even though my brother had pretty much stopped speaking to us after his marriage. So to try and dupe them into paying us such a huge amount of money was just so low and disgusting that I couldn't even bring myself to respond. Armed to what they were suggesting for a good few seconds, my brother, who'd always been a good son, was now suddenly trying to cover up his own faults, and was even willing to lie so that his ego wouldn't suffer a blow after a few minutes. So I told him straight away that I wasn't going to be part of that disgusting attempt at fooling our parents. And no way in hell was I being the scapegoat for something as stupid as this. Not just that. I also went on to tell my brother that I'd been considering making him a partner in the new business that I was starting. But after what he just suggested, that was never going to happen. I've been planning to start my own shipping business since I have experience in that particular industry. So here's the deal. I was toying with the idea of launching something big right after we got engaged, but then the baby news hit, and I hit pause, swimming in second guesses. But my fiancé, this powerhouse of a woman who's all in on her career too, wasn't having any of my hesitations. She gave me that nudge, saying, "Go for it," assuring me the money situation was under control. And with a little one on the horizon, it felt like the universe was giving us a wink and a nod. It was like all signs were pointing to now or never. I already had some investors, and my dad was also lending us some seed money, so we were all sorted, and by the time the baby was born, we'd be well established. I'd been planning to ask my brother since he was a business major and had good grades in college. Also, he didn't seem to be happy with his current job because of the salary, and he felt that he deserved more, which I could do for him. But then, after what he and his wife suggested, I had no intention of making him a part of my business or my life. My brother was stunned when he realized what I said, and that his own suggestion had just cost him a business opportunity, and immediately attempted to take it all back, saying that he was just joking and he didn't actually mean any of it. But I knew the truth. I told him that they could stay for the duration of the party because it was a happy occasion and I didn't want to ruin the vibe. But after that, we were done. I didn't want to speak to them or hear from them ever again, and my decision was final. Then I got up and left and didn't even look back, even when they requested me to rethink my decision. So, the engagement party is in full swing, and my brother and his wife are acting all kinds of shady, whispering and trying to drag me into corners for secret chats. Seriously, it was like they were plotting some heist right in the middle of our celebration. Everyone else is oblivious, having a blast, but I'm there wondering what kind of drama is about to unfold. Party wraps up, and it's just me and my fiance. I spill the beans on the whole weirdness, how my brother and sister-in-law kept trying to scheme with me. Her jaw hits the floor when she hears their audacious plan. She's just as shocked as I am and totally backs me up on my decision to shut that down fast and go no contact with them. Can you believe that? Right at our engagement party. What a night, huh? But that's not where it ended, because the very next day my brother dropped by again and asked me to help him out. He said that I owed this to him because of all that he's done for me, my entire life. I was confused because he'd never really done anything for me, at least financially. So I asked him what he meant by that, and he told me that back in college he'd agreed to not attend his first choice, since our parents had said that that one was way too expensive and they wouldn't be able to afford the best colleges for both of us. So apparently he had to compromise and ended up going to college closer to home in spite of being accepted to the one he actually wanted to go to, just so that I could attend the college of my choice. When he told me that I felt really awful and guilty, which was probably what my brother wanted in the first place anyway, he told me that I could either agree to the plan that he and sister-in-law have come up with, or I could make him a partner like I'd intended to earlier and give me 3 days to think about it. I'm on the second day now, and the guilt is eating away at me. Honestly, I didn't even know that my brother had made such a huge sacrifice for me. But then his so-called plan is incredibly cruel, and I absolutely do not want to go through with it. Our parents have always been kind to us, and I don't want to be the kind of person who tricks and lies to their own parents just for the sake of money and about the business. I'm at a crossroads here, folks. Despite my brother's knack for business, his current antics are throwing major red flags my way. And with a little one joining the scene soon, I'm not in the mood to gamble. My fiance and I have been racking our brains, trying to figure out the best move in this chess game of family drama and business decisions. It boils down to this. Do I extend a helping hand, despite his manipulative guilt trip about college sacrifices, or do I stand my ground? The thought of turning my back on him doesn't exactly leave me with a warm and fuzzy feeling, but then again, his behavior's been anything but brotherly. Fast forward to 3 days after pouring my heart out here, and guess who decides to show up? My brother, dialing in for a verdict. Talk about timing, right? I told him that I needed some more time to think about it, and while he did sound annoyed about it, he did agree to it. But I didn't need time to think. I just wanted to speak to my parents about what he told me. I couldn't just shake off the feeling that my brother wasn't being entirely truthful with me. So I decided to visit my parents and ask them about the whole college thing that my brother had told me about, and they just confirmed my suspicions. He had indeed been lying about sacrificing his college of choice for my sake. They told me that he hadn't even been accepted into that college in the first place, and my brother had demanded that they help him bribe his way somehow into being accepted. When they declined, he got upset and started accusing them of favoring me over him. And they got into a huge fight about this whole thing, and I think that's when they started growing apart. Then in college, he met his wife, and that made matters even worse, and effectively put an end to any hope of reconciliation, because my sister-in-law was only interested in adding fuel to the fire. Turns out my brother had been playing the victim card, painting himself as the less loved son, convincing my sister-in-law that my family and I were just waiting to leech off him. Her background? She comes from a family that runs a restaurant and doesn't shy away from flaunting their wealth. So, her being hyper-focused on their financial well-being didn't exactly come out of left field. But here's the kicker. She was dead set against my brother pitching in financially for his own flesh and blood. Yeah, you read that right. She maneuvered to keep my brother on a tight leash, far from our reach. Discovering this was a wake-up call, and boy was I relieved I hadn't caved to my brother's outrageous requests. It hit me that he'd been weaving tales and playing me for a fool the entire time. My blood boiled at the thought that he believed he could pull one over on me. Without a second thought, I cut him off, blocking him across all social media and communication channels. Enough was enough. I also told my parents about the plan that my brother and his wife had come up with and warned them to not lend him any money. What's really disappointing is that my parents told me that they wouldn't have had any issue with lending my brother the money had he just asked for it. But he just had to come up with some elaborate plan to deceive them and make things worse for himself. It's been 2 days since I learned the truth, and when my brother couldn't get through to me, he made my sister-in-law contact me instead. But I've blocked her as well. So now they've started bothering my fiancé. She's not very bothered about any of this, though, and has been treating the situation as a joke. I'm glad she can take this thing lightly and make it funny because I'm just too pissed off about what they've been trying to do. I was really hoping they'd take the hint, feel a bit of guilt, and keep their distance. But if they dared to cross our doorstep again, I was ready to let them have it. Update 2. Guess what? My brother and his wife, clearly missing a sensitivity chip, decide to drop by our place this morning. Yep, they just showed up, mood sour enough to spoil our entire day. Despite my fiancé making it crystal clear we weren't up for chatting, my brother bulldozed his way into our home. That set me off big time. This is our space, and him stomping in like he owned the place was the last straw. I didn't mince words, told him straight up he wouldn't see a dime from us. His track record of being deceitful and self-centered, with zero respect for us, was all the proof I needed that helping him was off the table. He seemed a little taken aback by my outburst and asked me what I was talking about. So I told him that I'd already talked to mom and dad, and I knew that he'd made that whole college thing up just to make me feel guilty and manipulate me into giving him either the money or the position. Even after that, he and his wife had the audacity to continue arguing with me. Their defense was that, in a way, the only reason my brother wasn't able to attend the college of his choice was because my parents wouldn't resort to unfair means and buy his way in, and eventually that money that they refused to spend on him went into my education. So he wasn't really lying. I couldn't believe that this was their argument. It was almost laughable, though, how hard they were trying to make it sound like our parents had been unfair to him or whatever. I'd been accepted into the college of my choice, fair and square, and I even had a scholarship. So technically our parents had to spend less on my education than on his. Moreover, they were the ones who never give all parents the love and respect that they deserved, and were now even trying to dupe them, which was just so sickening. If my brother and his wife had been decent folks who didn't choose to alienate my parents over trivial matters, they wouldn't have found themselves in this mess to begin with. I relayed to my brother what our dad had told me during our last conversation. He would have still lent him the money if he'd just set aside his misplaced pride and asked properly. For a moment there, my brother actually seemed somewhat remorseful. However, his wife was quick to dispute, insisting that there's no way our dad would have helped after all these years, suggesting he only said that to paint them in a bad light. Honestly, that was a ludicrous accusation. We didn't have to lift a finger to make them look bad. They were doing a fine job of that all on their own. They just were. My brother and his wife couldn't just forget about their massively inflated egos for once and ask our parents for help. And that was somehow supposed to be everyone's fault but their own. After a while, I got tired of arguing with them, since I realized that there was no point trying to explain why they were so wrong here. So I asked them to leave and stop bothering us. My brother got mad when I said that and called me a selfish brat and a lot of other things as well, which was really hurtful because, like I said, we'd grown up as the best of friends. I don't know how he got so lost along the way, but now he feels like I don't know him at all. He left after a lot of screaming and fighting, and it's been a few hours since that happened. So I've managed to calm myself down considerably. But obviously I still feel awful about what happened. I can't see a way out of this, which doesn't end with me and my brother never speaking to each other ever again. In all probability, my parents are also going to cut him off for good now because of his utter lack of morals and ethics. My fiancée has been wonderful and is trying her very best to distract me from all that's going on right now. And I'm just so grateful for that. I think that in a while I'm going to call my parents up and tell them about what my brother said. It'll hurt them, that's for sure. But they have every right to know what kind of person he is. Update 3. So I contacted my parents half an hour ago and told them whatever had happened in the morning. They weren't surprised in the least and were mostly disappointed with his behavior. I could hear my mom crying in the background while my dad tried to comfort her on. My heart broke for them because my mom blamed herself for how he turned out. I don't think they could have done anything better to avoid this, though. And this is completely on my brother himself. We grew up in the same house with the same rules and were treated just the same, and I turned out fine. I don't know what happened to him. My dad wasn't very kind about the whole fiasco, though, and sounded very angry on the phone while I told him the things that my sister-in-law had said, while my brother just went along with it. He told me that he knew what to do now and was muttering something about this being the last straw for him. But when I asked, he told me not to think about it and focus on my work and family instead. I guess I'll take his advice and do just that and try to stay away from any more of my brother's unnecessary drama. Update 4. Hey guys. It's been 4 days since the last update, and today my brother came by once more. This time he wasn't as aggressive and was on his own with no sister-in-law in tow. After the last meeting we had, I was kind of wary of him to say the least, but he seemed a lot more rational this time, so I was still willing to speak to him. He informed me that Dad's lawyer had called him up a day ago to tell him that he wouldn't be inheriting anything apart from a couple of antique watches that my dad had bought when he was younger. So basically, no money for my brother, in case my dad passed away. And I know he was trying not to show it on his face, but he was definitely scared out of his wits. He told me that he needed my help to make it up to Dad and beg for forgiveness so that he would undo this decision. I was kind of hesitant because I didn't even know what I was supposed to do in a situation like this. I did feel bad for him, but then again, all of this was his own fault. He wanted me to accompany him to our parents' house and side with him so that Dad wasn't as hard on him. I highly doubt that my presence will make any difference since I'm the one who told Dad about all this drama in the first place. But just because he seemed so desperate, I agreed to this and went with him as soon as our father saw him in the doorway. His face lost all traces of kindness, and he told my brother to get the hell out that very instant. He didn't even give him a chance to argue or explain himself and completely humiliated him before he'd even set foot in the house. It was only after my mother and I requested him to at least wait until we were inside the house that he let him in and still looking mad. My brother wasted no time in beginning to apologize for whatever he'd said to me about them and said that his head had been turned by his wife. I thought it was particularly low to blame it all on his wife when they were both equally at fault. His wife had obviously forced him to abandon his own family, but it was eventually his choice to do so. And when her family turned their backs on them, they came crawling back to us. Even then, they didn't have the common courtesy to at least apologize for the way he'd been so distant with us, constantly choosing her family over his own. If anything, he was worse than his wife, because at least she'd stuck with her family anyway. My mother seemed to mount a little at his apology, but my dad was not that soft. He told him straight away that if money was what he needed, then he'd have to work for it. He couldn't lie and cheat his way to get what he wanted. He had the chance to just ask for it, but he'd blown it way back. So now he had no other option but to work for what he wanted. I didn't know where he was going with this, but then my dad told him that the only way he'd be able to do that was to work under me once I started my own business. At first, he was totally against it and wanted to be made an equal partner. But like I said, initially, I've almost no trust in him, so that was out of the question. I wouldn't even be willing to hire him unless my dad hadn't come up with that solution. But just to honor my parents, I agreed to offer him a job. I was the one supposed to keep an eye on him and make sure he was doing his work honestly and sincerely. Any funny business at all. And he'd not only lose his job, but also his entire inheritance. This is what my father came up with. And honestly, he's getting off pretty easy because he's getting a second chance at redeeming himself as a human being, which is honestly pretty rare. He's definitely not very happy about it, that's for sure. I can't blame him either. Having to work for your little brother isn't probably the ideal situation for anyone, but if he wants the money, then he will have to work for it. Fair and square. That's also agreed to send him some money for the time being to take care of his needs. At the moment, which is also really kind of him after whatever has happened. I hope that my brother takes his chance and this job seriously and doesn't waste it. I'm a 26-year-old woman, married to my husband David, also 26, for 2.5 years. We've been buddies for 6. But brace yourselves, folks, because the real bombshell comes from David's older sister Olivia, who's a whopping 29 years old. And it's her who's about to set the whole family ablaze with the jaw-dropping drama I'm about to spill. Just 3 weeks ago, out of the blue, Olivia hit me up, asking if I'd join her on an all-female family getaway to Spain. You won't believe this, but my mother-in-law and my husband's cousin Emily, who's 27 and a total dynamo, are practically joined at the hip. It's crazy, right? Even though David and Emily are just cousins, they're like peas in a pod because they were in the same grade and went to the same high school. So naturally, I've also become super tight with Emily. At first, I wasn't exactly jumping at the chance to go on a family vacation because I didn't think it would be a blast with Olivia and my mother-in-law in tow. After some heart-to-heart with Emily, she spilled the beans that she was desperately in need of a break and was totally up for the trip. In fact, she practically twisted my arm to join her. I eventually caved in and said, "Why not?" The crazy part? Olivia was the sugar mama behind the whole trip, footing the bill for the flights and our fancy hotel stay. And believe me, money was no issue for her. She was swimming in cash. Olivia's husband happens to be a top-notch neurosurgeon, making their bank account look like it's on steroids. Olivia, on the other hand, runs her own event management company, but let's be real, it practically runs itself. She just doesn't want to be labeled as a socialite who sits around sipping cocktails all day. Interestingly enough, she holds a literature degree, which she's never actually put to use. In fact, she's pretty convinced that her college years were a colossal waste of time, except for that one magical moment when she crossed paths with her current husband at a friend's party. David has told me that Olivia has been spoiled rotten by her parents ever since childhood, and whatever she wanted, she got. That has extended into adulthood. And even now she thinks that just sulking, pouting, and the silent treatment will be enough to manipulate people into doing what she wants. It doesn't help that her husband and her parents still encourage such infantile behavior. David spilled the beans and told me that Olivia has been treated like an absolute princess since she was in diapers. Anything she ever desired, she got, and this pampering hasn't stopped even now that she's all grown up. Believe it or not, she still thinks that throwing a tantrum, pouting, or giving the silent treatment is a surefire way to manipulate people into doing her bidding. And the wild part? Her husband and her parents are still cheerleading for this childish behavior. Talk about enabling to the extreme. I had to trek to the airport, which was a trek from my house. I actually arrived there a whopping half an hour ahead of schedule. Now here's the kicker. With all the time on my hands, I was getting seriously bored, so I whipped out my phone to scroll through it. But guess what? Fate decided to throw me a curveball that very morning. My phone's vibration motor decided to kick the bucket, so it wasn't buzzing or vibrating at all. Talk about bad timing. Whenever I received a notification like it usually does, I didn't have the time to repair it that day, so I decided I'd do it. Once I returned from the holiday, it was purely by luck that I had been on my phone. When I received the message, I received an image from Olivia where she'd sent me the screenshot of text she'd received from a number I didn't recognize. The conversation had an image followed by a text, and once I downloaded it, I opened the image to check out the contents because it felt bizarre that Olivia was sending me the screenshot of someone else's conversation. As soon as I did, my blood froze because the picture had been clipped right outside of my house by someone who had a pair of scissors in their left hand. In a flash, I got another message from that same mysterious number. It said, "Tell your precious brother's wife that I'm back." Olivia followed up with a screenshot claiming she'd received this text from an unknown number just a few minutes ago. She was absolutely petrified, convinced that something was seriously wrong with David's safety. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks, sending me into full-blown panic mode. You see, I have a dark history of being stalked back in my college days, and that was hands down the most terrifying phase of my life. So, you can imagine the sheer terror that swept over me in that moment. I had a stalker who would randomly click pictures of me from the back and send them to me throughout the day. He wouldn't text me on my number, but would use dummy social media accounts to talk to me. He'd ask me to meet him at certain spots, but he'd never show up. I wouldn't go unarmed, and I was trained in jujitsu, but even then, I felt very afraid of what would happen. This went on for 2 whole months, and I didn't tell anyone because I was scared of what he might do if I did. Initially, I tried to get the guy to stop, but he texted me and told me that if I believed even a word of this to anyone, then I'd be in big trouble, and had even sent me a similar picture from right outside my parents' house to frighten me. This is where things take a dark and chilling turn. I was petrified, like I mentioned earlier, and the fear was so intense that I couldn't bring myself to confide in anyone about it. I just kept my terror locked inside, resorting to silent prayers for my safety whenever I had to step out for classes. In those initial weeks, I'd cautiously make the trek to class and back to my dorm, but that was it. Soon, it escalated to the point where I flat out refused to leave my room altogether. You know why? Because I was bombarded with pictures of myself, and I mean seriously unnerving photos, on such a frequent basis that it felt like I was being watched every single moment. It was a living nightmare. It was then that my roommate finally realized that something was wrong and forced me to tell her. And after that, we went to the police to report this within a few days, and the rest had been made. And very ironically, it happened to be a guy from the computer engineering department. He was a senior and had a history of making girls on campus feel creeped out or harassed. Unfortunately, he'd taken a liking to me, and so he started stalking me. And because he specialized in cyber safety, he was able to find out a lot about me from my social media accounts, which happened to be public at the time. He'd also simultaneously been stalking another girl who hadn't reported this for the same reasons as me. Once he was caught, he was kicked out of college, and that was the end of him terrorizing me and other women. After a few days, word had it that his parents swooped in, snatched him up, and shipped him back to his home country. Fast forward several years, and I had almost buried that dark chapter in my past. But as soon as I laid eyes on that image, it was like a floodgate of terror came crashing back into my life. Without wasting a moment, I dialed 911 in sheer panic. I urgently urged Olivia to rush over to my place, but in my frantic state, I forgot to mention that I had already called the cops because my primary concern was getting a warning out to David. Instead, I got a cab within minutes and started trying to call my husband desperately because I knew that he was still asleep. It was 8 in the morning at the time, and my husband has a tendency to sleep late on the weekends, so I knew it wouldn't be easy for me to get through to him. But luckily, he did answer me when I called him for the first time. I could tell that he'd just woken up because he sounded drowsy, but I didn't have time to spare. So I told him to arm himself with something heavy, lock himself in the bedroom, and block the door somehow. He was confused, but as soon as I mentioned the picture, he told me he understood and did as I told him. I remained on the phone with David during that seemingly endless 45-minute cab ride back home. I clung to the call, my heart pounding, even as the police arrived and meticulously searched our house. In the midst of it all, I didn't dare check my phone. With the vibration feature on the fritz, there were no physical cues from notifications to prompt me either. When I finally arrived home, their inspection was nearly complete, and to my relief, they hadn't unearthed any trace of a suspicious individual in the vicinity. I was having a full-blown panic attack by the time I reached home, and it took me several minutes and a half a bottle of water to finally calm down. The cops told me that they'd run the phone number through the system, and the only name that had come up was Ethan. That wasn't my stalker name, but a fake name for his phone number would be totally feasible. By then, I'd forgotten about Olivia and my phone, and hadn't checked it in a while because I was just so relieved to see that David was safe. The cops who'd come to my house informed me that they'd sent 2 cops separately to pay this person after the cybercrime department had tracked the sender and were currently bringing them to the police station. David and I wasted no time, rushing over to the nearest police station mere minutes after we got home. But here's the real jaw-dropper. Olivia was escorted in by 2 stern-looking cops, her tears flowing like a waterfall. By now, I'm sure most of you have already pieced together what happened, and yes, it's exactly what you're thinking. For some inexplicable reason, Olivia thought it would be a brilliant idea to pull a prank on me that morning, just to mess with my head a little before our trip. She'd met a friend of mine from college for work a couple of days back, and of course I've come up while they were discussing families. And once they discovered the connection, my old college mate told us all about my stalker in college, which was something I become very popular for. I'm not bragging, but after the stalker incident, my popularity among the students and teachers alike had pretty much skyrocketed because everyone likes a good scandal. I never thought it was fun to be pointed out and whispered about, but people had remembered, and I guess we're still talking about it, after finding out about my past stalker. Olivia had decided that she was going to prank me on the morning of our flight, and it'd be fun. So she'd used a phone number that she'd taken up a couple of days ago under a fake name, just for this purpose, to text herself an image that she'd clicked a few days ago, right in front of our house with the scissors and an outstretched arm. As I scrutinized that ominous hand in the photo, I realized something shocking. It wasn't a man's hand at all. Olivia had gone so far as to remove her nail polish to pull off this sick joke. So, when I received that picture for the first time, the panic and fear had twisted my mind so much that I couldn't even tell. It was like a mental roller coaster of terror that had me completely fooled, and I'd missed a lot of important things that hinted at this being a prank. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter. It had been a traumatic thing for me back in college, and the thought of going through that again really scared me, especially when David and his safety were at risk. It wasn't fun at all, and ended with an embarrassing visit to the police station where she was let off with a warning. And David and I ended up wasting our time and energy worrying about the return of my stalker when we had nothing to worry about. I was beyond angry when I left the station and just let her have it. I must have screamed at her for more than 15 minutes, and by the time I was done, she was bawling again. But I didn't care. She tried to make a mockery out of something that was a really traumatic and scary experience for me. And because of her own stupidity, she'd landed us all in an embarrassing situation so she could cry her tears all she wanted. But I wasn't going to feel even an iota of sympathy for her. David and I drove back home that day, and on the ride back home, I told Emily all about what had happened, and even she ended up canceling the trip because let's be real. Nobody in their right mind would want to spend time with someone as thoughtless as Olivia after she took her idiocy to the next level. I spent the entire day just trying to regain my composure because it had been an absolutely bonkers morning. I was still grappling with the after effects of the stalker scare. The threat had felt incredibly real in the heat of the moment, and even after learning it was all a cruel joke, it was a Herculean task to shake off the lingering fear. It had resurrected the darkest period of my life, and that kind of fear doesn't dissipate easily. When it happened back in college, and I'll admit I was still pretty spooked by it that day, I didn't talk to anyone, apart from David and the little two Emily. I didn't get any notifications either because I turned my phone off for the day. I'd had enough. It was only 2 days ago that I found out that my mother-in-law and Olivia had pretty much filled my entire inbox with their messages regarding how I had been the one to overreact at a silly little prank, and that it had been cruel of me to tell Emily to back out of the vacation as well. I hadn't even told Emily to not go on the trip. I just told her about what Olivia had done. The decision not to go on the trip was hers alone, and I had no part in it. Apparently, Emily and David had turned everyone against Olivia, and now nobody in the family wanted to speak to her after what she'd done. To make matters even more mind-boggling, my own father-in-law, Olivia's dad, my mother-in-law, and Olivia herself all believe that I'm the mastermind behind this twisted prank. But here's the kicker. I hadn't breathed a word to anyone about what had transpired. I couldn't have, given that I didn't even use my phone that day. In fact, it was Emily and David who spilled the beans to the other cousins and the younger members of the family, leading them to cut ties with Olivia. They think that I'm the one who now Olivia, an apology, because what she did was just a harmless prank. But what's happening to her is real and hurtful. She's being cut off by her own family, and that's why now she's the victim here. I spoke to David about this after I read that text, and he told me that there's no reason for me to feel sorry for her at all. And neither does he and Emily feel sorry for telling everyone else about this. What she did to me was undoubtedly cruel and not just a harmless prank. It would have been harmless if it didn't trigger my past trauma to the point of making me unable to think or do anything else for an entire day. But we all know the mental toll that it took on me. This wasn't a harmless prank in the slightest, and it left me paralyzed with anxiety for an entire day. So it's safe to say that Olivia absolutely deserved the fallout from her actions. What makes it even more baffling is that she didn't even offer a sincere apology, opting instead to just cry. It's a total head-scratcher why she expected any sympathy from me when she didn't show an ounce of remorse for what she put me through. I think that's very hypocritical of her. But I don't expect any less. After I read the text and spoke to David about it, I was just going to ignore her because I had no intention of wasting my own time by speaking to her and trying to reason with her. But she just kept texting me again and again. It was clear that she was just trying to make me feel guilty about what had happened. And I knew that she fully believed that she could manipulate me into apologizing and getting the family back on good terms with her again. It just got on my nerves after a while. So in a moment of frustration, I actually ended up responding to her. I texted her back saying that I was glad that she'd chosen to play such an insensitive and cruel prank on me because that just revealed what an awful piece of work she was to everyone. She brought all this upon herself, and honestly, she's got no one else to blame. I made it crystal clear that I wasn't involved in the other family members turning their backs on her. But secretly, I wished I could take credit for helping to rid our family of such a toxic presence. And to top it all off, I wrapped up the message by telling her that she's just as nasty on the inside as she appears on the outside, hinting at her weight. I'm not generally someone who judges people by their bodies, because I have been bullied for my own body in the past for being excessively skinny. But here, I just wanted Olivia to feel bad. I knew she was insecure about her weight, so that's where I chose to hit her because I knew it. It hurt. I don't know if I was too hard on her, but I did feel good after I sent that message. I tried very hard to keep my opinions to myself and my temper under control, but she just kept texting me and went on pushing and pushing until I finally lost it. So I replied to her and called her trashy because that's how I felt about her. After the prank, she tried to pull off. I used to tolerate her earlier, despite her spoiled and insensitive behavior, but this was way beyond my tolerance. Now, I kept my phone aside after sending her that text and tried to distract myself by watching a movie and only came back to my phone after 3 hours. When I finally checked my messages, there was a new message from Olivia where she said that she'd considered me a good friend of hers all along, and that's why she'd expected me to forgive a tiny mistake of hers without having to beg for forgiveness. It's like she was dropping hints that she was sorry, though I couldn't quite grasp what that meant. But I guess it clicked for her. Then she hit me with this. If you're just going to be mean to me, you should have never replied in the first place. Instead of going out of your way to be nasty and make me feel awful, you should have just stuck to ignoring me, like you were doing earlier. But I chose to be cruel just to hurt her, which made me just as trashy as her. I don't like Olivia much, but she does have a point, I guess. And maybe I shouldn't have said the things I said. I was just really angry with whatever she'd done, and the way she was still trying to pin the blame on me instead of accepting that she screwed up was making me feel even angrier. She's the one who kept pushing me by trying to gaslight me into believing that this was somehow my fault, and I just couldn't take that. So I guess I went a little too low. The only thing I feel bad for is shaming her for her weight, because I know how bad that feels. However, I still don't think she has any right to even approach me and demand an apology after what she did to me. If she'd just been a decent person and owned up to her fault, maybe we wouldn't be here at all. David doesn't think I should apologize because she deserved to be called out. She'd hurt me first, and then continued to try and hurt me by gaslighting me and manipulating me by insisting that she was somehow the victim here. He doesn't think I should even feel sorry for her. Now here's where it gets really tricky. Emily, on the flip side, believes that I may have gone a tad overboard with my response. So, I'm stuck in this confusing whirlwind of emotions and don't have a clue about the right course of action. That's why I've turned to the Reddit community for advice, because I'd hate to sink to Olivia's level just for the sake of revenge. I love David, but he's not always the best person when it comes to emotional situations like these. And I also love Emily, but she's a little too emotional, unlike David. And what I need right now is completely unbiased judgment, keeping in mind the circumstances. So, 2 for calling my heavy sister-in-law a pig to insult her insecurities after she tried to pull a prank on me that made light of my past trauma. Update 1. Hey, so I read the comments on my original post, and I respect everyone's opinions, but I couldn't help myself and did apologize to Olivia for the pig comment that I made. I'm not sorry about anything else that I said, but I just couldn't live with myself knowing that I'd attack someone for the way they look, knowing how bad it had made me feel when I'd gone through the same thing in the past. So as someone who knows how it feels to be bullied for things that are not in my control, I think I did what I had to do to get this thing off my conscience. I just sent the apology. Text 5 minutes ago and she hasn't opened it yet, but I hope she does and accepts it. Although I'll be fine even if she doesn't, because I'll know that I tried my best. Once I've done that, the ball is in Olivia's court to decide whether she wants to accept the apology or not. On another note, I've decided not to communicate with my mother-in-law, even though she wasn't involved in this mess at all. It's puzzling why she felt the need to jump to her daughter's defense, especially when she knew Olivia was in the wrong. Every single one of her texts was a variation of, yes, Olivia messed up, but, or, I understand why you're upset, but it's baffling. So if she knows why I'm annoyed at Olivia, then why exactly does she expect me to apologize to Olivia? Doesn't even make sense. Honestly, I just think she wants me to feel bad for Olivia. But I'm 100% sure that had our places been swapped, and I had done something like this to Olivia, then she wouldn't have had the same attitude. David may not be thrilled about my choice to apologize, but he thinks I'm a decent person for taking the high road with his troublesome sister. Emily, on the other hand, is all smiles about my decision and even expressed how proud she is of me. So I guess, all things considered, I'm content with my actions. And here's the latest. Olivia has finally responded to my apology. It's been several hours since I sent that text, and just half an hour ago she replies, saying that it was fine, but she didn't expect any better anyway. She said that she was a little shocked, but it's fine because she understands now that we're not friends, never were, and definitely won't be in the future. For what it's worth, at least she did say that she was sorry for trying to mess with me and using something so traumatic against me. Had she known that there would be such horrible consequences, then she never would have gone ahead with the prank at all. I mean, I don't think she should have gone ahead with the prank like that in any case, regardless of the circumstances, because it's just gross and disrespectful. But at least there was an apology. She was very passive-aggressive about the whole thing. It was crystal clear that Olivia had put some serious thought into crafting a response that was designed to be both maddening and apologetic. Her attempt was, quite frankly, a pitiful excuse for an apology. But hey, I suppose something is better than nothing, right? At least this way, I won't have to carry the weight of guilt for my own sharp words, and I can finally move forward without dwelling on the harsh exchange. I'm done and dusted with this whole episode. Now onwards, there will be no more Olivia in our lives, and that's the best thing that came out of this whole incident. Update 3. Hey everyone. So it's been about a month since the last update, and last week Emily found out that she was pregnant. So there was a huge pregnancy announcement party where everyone was invited with the exception of Olivia because nobody has spoken to or heard from her after they cut her off. She deactivated her socials for a while and had been completely MIA, but David had checked in with his dad, and they reassured us that she was all right, just taking a break from everything social. At the time of the party, though, she sent Emily a text that wished her luck on this journey, that she was about to embark on the usual best wishes for a happy and healthy pregnancy. But with a sprinkle of Olivia's classic passive aggressiveness, she probably couldn't resist the opportunity to become the talk of the town, since there was finally a huge family event that she'd been excluded from. And so, she'd sent Emily a holier-than-thou message about how she wished she could be there with her on such a happy occasion, but couldn't because of prior commitments, completely ignoring the fact that she wasn't invited. Olivia's response was quite the spectacle. She mentioned how she would have adored the chance to reunite with me, David, and the rest of the family once more. However, she also made a peculiar claim about putting herself first and not allowing negative energies, referring to us as the supposed culprits of negativity, to bring her down. It was nothing short of a load of baloney, and we couldn't help but share a good laugh while reading that message. We didn't give her the satisfaction of becoming the hot topic at the party either, because we kept that text to ourselves and didn't tell anyone else. It was just ridiculous how badly she wanted to be a part of things, but wouldn't apologize at all. She can choose to suffer in silence, but clearly that's too much for her to handle. We had our hopes up that Olivia might undergo a positive transformation after her social media detox. We thought she'd take some time for self-reflection and possibly become a better person. But as it turns out, she's still the same old Olivia. Well, good for her, I suppose. At the very least, her text messages provided us with some truly entertaining moments, and we couldn't help but chuckle at her hilariously misguided attempt. Sister snatched my fiancé. Now she's stunned I married someone way better. All right, let me tell you a story about my sister Olivia, and I'm just going to use her real name because why not? So, Olivia did something pretty shocking. Basically, she managed to charm my fiancé away from me because she thought he was too good looking and rich to be with someone like me, who she thinks is just plain. Olivia always thought he deserved someone super pretty, like her. So she made her move, and guess what? He fell for it and ended up marrying her. Honestly, it turned out for the best because it showed me he was a cheater, and I ended up finding someone way better for me. But let's rewind and go way back, like 15 years ago when I was about 26. Now, I'm 41. Olivia is 6 years younger than me, and we're like night and day. She's always been the center of attention at family and social events, making sure everyone notices her. She's definitely pretty. No one can deny that. She's got this stunning look, and she's super proud of it. Olivia never misses a chance to show off and look down on people who she thinks don't meet her standards of beauty. That includes me. She's always criticized the way I dress and made fun of me because I'm not all that social. When we were kids, I was the one you'd find buried in books and comics, while Olivia was probably trying on outfits or messing with makeup. I never even had a Barbie doll. Olivia and I just didn't connect like sisters usually do. She saw herself as a fashion icon, And to her, I was just plain old me. And in a way, she wasn't totally wrong. I'm someone who likes simple things, no big dramatic scenes for attention. I'm calm and like having my own quiet space. From very early on, I left home for my high school and I couldn't be more relieved. Who wants to be around an entitled brat? Life was pretty much fun with my busy schedule in medical school. I used to visit home during holidays or spring break, and that too. I kept my trips short. Things got straightened out with Olivia as we had minimal encounters. Olivia dropped out of high school to pursue a career in fashion. Later, again, she dropped out of fashion school for a modeling career until I was in touch with her. She got 2 photo shoot projects from a local apparel brand in 5 years. I'm not sure if you can call this a successful modeling career, which she often refers to. If you think I mean, hold on. After I moved out of the house, the bitterness between Olivia and me subsided. We met twice a year for a few days. She didn't get enough opportunity to piss me off, so we were cool. In my freshman year in college, I met Smith. He was quite senior to me. He was pursuing his master's while I was still a freshman for a bachelor's degree. Besides, he had a couple of years of hands-on experience as a duty doctor. He was specializing as a heart specialist, one of the most reputed specializations that a cherry to the cake. He was handsome, used to give lessons on the subject of the circulatory system to freshman students to earn some extra bucks and brush up his knowledge. He was popular for his simple teaching methods, more popular amongst the girls because you know who doesn't want to take lessons from a blue-eyed 6'2" lean and well-built university senior? I also took lessons from him, and eventually we started dating. In my final year of college, he proposed me after dating him for 4 years. I had no reason to say no. He was already working at the hospital by then. During the holidays, when I went home, my mom saw the ring on my finger and asked in some happy moments of festivities. I told her everything. She jumped in excitement because it's not usual that I get serious with anyone. Smith was the first guy I ever dated or had sex with. Mom asked me the details about Smith because she sniffed her marriage on the cards. Olivia often used to say that I'm never going to find a good man to marry me. By good, she meant rich and handsome. Whenever she got to know that I was seeing a guy, she would remark, "He's going to run away. Your relationship won't even last for a week." So when Olivia got to know Smith, her eyes lit up and she wanted to know more about him. It was kind of unusual for her to take an interest in my life because it was always been very boring. I asked her, "Why do you want to know about him?" And she said, "He's going to be family, so I should know him." Mom asked me to call him for dinner on New Year's Eve. Later, I got to know that Olivia had asked Mom to invite Smith. We didn't have any plans for that year, so Smith agreed to tag along. When we reached home, we were greeted by Olivia. It was quite surprising because Olivia is a party person. She's never seen home on the weekends. On New Year's, she was off for a week-long party with her friends, but this time she was at home. Quite surprising. Should have been alarming, right? But I didn't get bothered. I don't give a crap about others' lives. I went home with Smith, and my sister was floored by Smith. Her first comment was, "I thought you'd be rich, but you're handsome too." Her flirtatious gestures weren't just so evident. It was right on my face. Yet I didn't take any heed. I was secure in my relationship. Throughout the evening, she made moves at him by complimenting him trivially, touching his arms and thighs unnecessarily, and forcing a conversation with him. She sat next to him at the dinner table. I gave her a look and she made a cute pout and said, "You get to sit with him every day. Today, I can be his arm candy." Everyone chuckled, and we took it as life fund. During the conversation, she got to know the Smith goes for a walk after his dinner. As soon as he cleared up after the dinner, she offered to give him a tour of the neighborhood. Smith looked at me while I sat there with a straight face, not knowing what to say. Smith replied with an awkward yes, and they both went out for a walk that night. While we were driving back from my parents' play, a Smith asked me if I noticed how Olivia was flirting with him. I laughed and brushed it off, saying she's an attention seeker. I thought Smith wasn't so shallow that he would fall for superficial beauty, but dang, he did. He was equally mesmerized by Olivia's charm, and he cheated on the first opportunity he got a few months later. I had my final year exams. As usual, I cut down on her hangouts to focus on my studies. Eventually, I found him cutting down the communication. When I confronted him, he said he wanted me to focus on my finals. I was too busy to suspect any foul play. On the last day of my exam, I asked him to pick me up from college. He said he was busy. Later that night, I called him to check up on him. He said he was home, but he was too tired and ready to doze off. I went to his place to surprise him, but it was locked. I called him again, but he didn't respond. I waited for his call the next day, but he didn't call back. Shamelessly, I called him again and asked him why he lied the last night. He said he forgot to mention that he had crashed at his colleague's place. Stupid me didn't read this to be any kind of a signal. How would I? This was the first time anything such has happened to me. This continued for a week until I lost my marbles. Came back to my senses. I asked him point blank if he wanted to break up with me. He hesitated for a few seconds before murmuring a yes. He said he no longer loved me. That was it. The last conversation we ever had. I didn't ask what, when, or how. Heartbreak is always painful, and that too, without any reason. Even more. He left me with a sense of insecurity, self-doubt, and many unanswered questions, which he didn't answer. And neither did I ask. It took months and many bottles of single malt whiskey, but eventually I moved on. Glad that he broke up after my finals. Also, I would have taken one more year to finish up medical school. 7 months later, I get a call from Olivia, and she invited me to her engagement. I congratulated her and asked about the guy. She didn't say the name and asked me to come to the party and meet him in person. I was happy for her. Yes, it saddened me for a while that I was supposed to be married during that time, but I was single and nursing my breakup. I tried to forget my miserable life and showed up at my sister's engagement. As soon as I entered the venue, I saw the board. Olivia Smith. Oh my goodness, it gave me shivers down my spine, but I calmed down myself, saying Smith is too common of a name. He might be someone else. But as I went inside, I ran into two as Smith's friends. They turned to the other side when they saw me coming. My heartbeat raised as I went near the podium where Olivia was supposed to be sitting with her fiancé. The moment I saw Smith sitting with her, his arms wrapped around hers, I froze. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there with tears in my eyes. The next thing I remember was my mom pulling me to a corner and asking me to behave. She asked me not to create a scene there and let everyone be happy. She said no one knows about her past and she would like to keep it that way. I cried out loud and yelled, "You know everything, and you let this happen. Olivia is a witch. You are all evil. You are all in this together." By then, I saw Olivia coming over with an evil smile. It was like 15 years ago, yet I remember every word of her so clearly. That was the most humiliating moment of my life. She said, "You thought you could have this man pointing towards Smith. Handsome, tall, rich. Are you so plain? No way. You don't deserve him. You deserve someone plain like yourself. You see how beautiful we look together and how people are adoring us? Oh my goodness. So cute couple, huh? Everyone would have laughed seeing you beside him. Man, my goodness, what a horrible person. I wanted to slap her right across the face, but my mom stopped me and asked me to leave. She thought I was there to stop the engagement. She was yelling at me. "Why did you come here? Don't you have any self-respect?" I said I didn't know this, which is effing M. Had I known, I would have never shown my face. Olivia denied having invited me. She lied to my mom that she didn't invite me, Mom, and asked her not to invite me because I would be hurt. But Olivia deliberately invited me to humiliate me. I left the place bawling and howling. My breakup pain bounced back. It would have been an understatement to say that it was difficult. It was the most traumatic phase of my life. The lowest point, I would say. Luckily, I graduated with good grades and got into a good hospital with hectic duty hours and barely got time to think about anything. I deliberately kept myself busy on off days. I moved on. Years later, I met my husband at work. He is a board member of the hospital chain that I work for. We dated for 4 years and got married. And now we are proud parents of 2 kids. Fast forward to a week ago, and I get a call from an unknown number. I answered the call, and the person identified herself as Olivia. Even after hearing her name, it took me a few seconds to realize she was my sister. P.S. A few of my patients' names are also Olivia. I asked her why she called me. She was acting all so sweet, asking about my life, and all the Olivia that I know wouldn't spare a second on me without any motive. And I said, "Cut the crap and say what you want." She remained silent for a moment and said, "Actually, I need your help. My husband Smith has gotten into trouble. A patient got a post-surgery allergy and the hospital might sack him." I was like, "What can I do about it?" she said. The Smith worked at one of the hospital chains whose board member is my husband, so my husband could save him from any severe punishment. By then I zoned out. I snapped at her to not ever call me again, and we are going to help them. I didn't know that Smith was working at the same hospital chain as me. He was working at a different location. I looked him up on the employee portal of the hospital and found Smith, but his current status showed suspended. I wanted to discuss this with my husband, but I didn't want to dig out my past, so I let it slide. 2 days back, my mom showed up at my door. It felt like I had seen a ghost. I'd cut them off since Olivia's engagement day. She hugged me and cried, saying it was so good to see me after so many years. But I knew that her underlying motive behind all this sweetness was to save Smith. But my husband was home at the time. He heard about my mom's plea for helping her golden son-in-law. My husband said, "Smith is accused of medical negligence, and there's an ongoing investigation against him. He said there's nothing he could do, and even if he could, he wouldn't do it. He doesn't exercise power for personal benefit. My mom bit her lips and left without saying a word. Yesterday, my husband came back from work and said that Smith's investigation had been concluded. He would be sacked from his job. But my husband has the power of letting him retain his medical license against a hefty penalty amount. He said he could ask the other board members to go lenient on Smith and not forward his case to state healthcare for further investigation. Now I'm in a fix. Should I forget my humiliation and help Smith? Or should I make him pay for the price for his deeds? I mean, being a doctor, I know how difficult it is to get a medical degree, and losing the license is the worst thing that can happen to a doctor. You just need to do what you feel is right and what you can live with. Now for the updates. Update 1. There was no need to post it here and get the opinion of you guys what Olivia and my mother did after they made it clear that they don't deserve any of my help. They're anything but narcissistic. Olivia and Mom have been hurling abuses at me on social media. I don't use Facebook much, but this week when I opened it, I found I was tagged on several posts by Olivia where she called me a vindictive witch, reframing her husband. She has written a long post claiming that I was jealous of her because Smith dumped me and married her, and I was doing all this to avenge my betrayal. My mom had also jumped in on the bandwagon and said that I had abused them and cut them off because I couldn't stand Smith getting married to Olivia. Extended family had taken their side and commented that I was taking revenge too far by ripping off Smith's livelihood. Even Smith has commented that I was delusional and that he never loved me, never proposed to me. And I'd always love Olivia. Like, what the F? I immediately untagged myself and blocked them. I told my husband not to spare Smith from any of the charges. In fact, he should be punished to the maximum for each of his felonies. My husband gave me a smirking look and said he had never seen me this angry. So Smith was officially sacked from the hospital, and his case had been forwarded to the state healthcare department for license cancellation. A fresh investigation will be conducted by the government body, and if he is found guilty of the charges, the hospital is claiming he will lose his license and also go to prison. That's like a cherry on the cake. I'll update as the situation progresses. Right now, I'm enjoying the drama with a basket of popcorn. Yum, yum. Edit small clarification. Olivia and my mom were not added to my social media account. The thing is, I have an open account so anybody can tag me in their posts. I had not blocked him earlier because 15 years ago I wasn't using social media. Now they are blocked from social media and also my life. Update 2. How low can a person stoop? Now, I know Smith showed up at my workplace. Like I said, he worked at the same hospital chain as me, but at a different location. He posed as a patient and came inside my chamber. He knew that there was no way that I would have met him if he had come to see me. I immediately asked him to leave. He said that he had paid a fee to consult me, so as a doctor, I should treat him. Fair enough. I listened to his problems while swiftly switching on the voice recorder on my phone. I did this so that he couldn't trap me in another mess, and I'm glad that I did. He was faking his health condition, saying that he had gotten the flu and all. I acted professionally and gave him the medication as per the symptoms. But he wasn't ready to leave and unnecessarily asked stupid questions. He started flirting. I asked him to stop and leave. He said I wanted to apologize to you long back. I didn't intend to hurt you, but your sister trapped me and made me sleep with her. Then she blackmailed me to marry her, or else she would press molestation charges on me. I asked him to stop right there because all he spoke was complete BS. I could have called security on him, but I was really enjoying his desperation. Revenge is so sweet, I tell you. I heard him out with a satisfied wide smile. He went on to say, I know you still love me. That's why you're still hurt and want to take revenge. Honestly, I still feel for you. I regret marrying Olivia. If you can convince your husband to save me from prison time, I promise I'll leave Olivia and be your lover. You don't need to leave your husband, but we can secretly have our own thing. That douchebag had the audacity to say this. I burst out in laughter and called security on him, asking him to leave. He had no idea that he was being recorded. The disappointment on his face was so satisfying, he thought, he convinced me. I texted Olivia and wanted to send her the recordings of her low-life husband. I said, your loser husband visited my clinic, posing as a patient. She said, I know, he tells me everything. We also know that you still love him. I can let you sleep with him for the night if you can save his license and prison time. Her response blew my mind. No point in talking to her any further. They are together in this dirty game. I told my husband about this and he was aghast. He said he would have sued him for offering bribes, but it would dig out of my painful past. I said, I'll let him handle one charge at a time, but I'm going to do my bit to exact my revenge. I added Olivia Smith, my mom and other relatives on Facebook. Olivia Smith accepted it at once. Maybe they took it as a positive sign for me. Then I wrote a long post about Olivia Smith, and my mom had been trying to manipulate me to help Smith get prison time. I attached the screenshot of the conversation with Olivia. I also turned on the voice recordings into a still video with Smith and Olivia's picture with a voice running in the background and uploaded it. That post blew up with comments. I block Olivia Smith and Mom because I knew they would retaliate. My extended family and relatives expressed their disgust about Olivia, offering to let Smith hook up with me to get away with his negligence. Olivia and my mom tried to contact me, but I had blocked their calls and voicemails. I spent the whole of yesterday and today reading the comments on the post. People have gone to the next level trolling Olivia and Smith. My weekend couldn't be better story to my sister and her husband are buying a boat so they can live as nomads on the ocean. I'm really worried for my sister and her husband. TLDR. My sister and her husband have decided to buy a boat and live on the ocean. They have never seen the ocean or been on a boat before, and they can't even swim. I think this is a terrible idea. I think so too. But my sister won't listen to anyone who doesn't agree with this for some background information. So my post makes sense. My family is from Saskatchewan in Canada. There is a river that's sort of near where we live, and there is a lake a few hours away from here that my parents took my sister and I to a couple of times when we were younger. But we live in a landlocked province in the middle of the prairies. It's the exact same situation for my sister's husband. My sister is married. They had planned on buying a house after the wedding because their lease would be expiring. And my sister told me that they are tired of renting. But that's all changed. They have announced they are going to buy a boat and live as nomads. Their word, not mine. It was my sister had the idea and her husband got on board right away. I don't know where this came from. Neither of them have ever talked about owning a boat. They have already quit their jobs and are donating and giving away almost all of their things. My sister had told me they had just over $70,000 saved for their down payment. Now, instead of buying a house, they are going to buy a sailboat and sell all over the world. They say they will do odd and remote jobs if they need money, but otherwise they are heading for the freedom of the ocean. Again, they use that word, not me. Sounds like they watch Captain Ron or something. When they announced their plan, I was shocked. I thought that they were kidding. I think this is a terrible idea. Their only experience with water is having been to a lake a couple of times when they were kids. And a lake here in Saskatchewan is not the same as the ocean. Neither of them have ever been outside of Saskatchewan before. Not shaming them because I haven't either. Neither of them have ever been on a boat before. Neither of them have ever seen the ocean, and neither of them knows how to swim. I think this is such a stupid idea. My sister and her husband aren't kids. They are both adults, older than 35. Apparently, my sister's husband has a sister who made them see a doctor because of how out of character this is. But all the tests come back clean. His sister is as against this as I am. Another thing that shocked me is that what my sister told me about having kids before the wedding, she said that they wanted to have kids as soon as possible given their age. I thought this would change their plan to buy a boat, but my sister says they still want to have kids, and she doesn't see why she can't be pregnant or why they can't raise kids on a boat. My sister wasn't happy when I asked her what she was thinking or when I told her it was a stupid idea. I realized that she and her husband can do whatever they want with their lives, but I'm honestly scared for them. I can think of so many ways this can go wrong. I'm afraid that they will get hurt or killed. They're dead set and dig their heels in. Whenever anybody tells them that this is a bad idea. I know I can't control what other people do, but I'm so worried and scared. Update 3. Hello again, everyone. It's been a tumultuous few weeks since I last shared about the ordeal with my sister Olivia, her husband Smith, and the chaos that ensued. Life certainly hasn't been dull, and today, I'm here to bring you up to speed on the latest developments. After the unbelievable proposal from Olivia and the blatant manipulation attempts by my mother, I was resolute in my decision not to intervene on Smith's behalf. The aftermath of that decision was both freeing and chaotic. Olivia and my mother escalated their efforts by taking to social media to vilify me, painting me as the vengeful sibling. It was painful to see, but I stood firm, supported by the solid foundation of my own family and principles. Smith's audacity reached new heights when he showed up at my clinic under the guise of a patient. This was a blatant attempt to emotionally blackmail me into helping him save his career. I maintained professionalism, but the encounter left me shaken. It was a stark reminder of how manipulative and desperate he had become. Olivia's callousness was laid bare when she suggested I could have a night with Smith if I helped him. This was not only morally repugnant, but also showed how low she would stoop to protect what she considered hers. It was a surreal moment that cemented my decision to cut ties permanently. After these incidents, I took steps to ensure there would be no further breaches of my peace. I changed my contact information. tightened my social media privacy settings, and informed my workplace of the potential for further disturbances. These measures have given me a much-needed sense of security and control. The investigation into Smith's professional conduct concluded with his dismissal and the forwarding of his case to the state healthcare board. This outcome, while severe, was justified based on his actions. It was a difficult chapter to close, but necessary for the integrity of the medical profession and my own peace of mind. The rift within the family has deepened, unfortunately. My mother and Olivia have isolated themselves with their narrative, convincing some of my more distant relatives of their twisted version of events. It's painful to see a family divided, but I've come to accept that not everyone will see things clearly or choose to stand by what's right. Through all of this, I've learned a great deal about resilience and the importance of boundaries. My therapist has been instrumental in helping me navigate these emotional waters, affirming that while I cannot control others' actions, I can control my response and maintain my dignity and self-respect. Looking ahead, I'm focusing on my family and career. My husband and children have been my rock, and I'm reminded daily of the love and stability they provide. I've also taken up a new hobby, painting, which has been a wonderful outlet for expression and stress relief. Thank you all for your support and kind words throughout this ordeal. Your encouragement has been a beacon of hope in these dark times. As I turn the page on this chapter, I look forward to brighter days ahead, filled with peace and positive growth. Here's to finding strength in the face of adversity and moving forward with grace.